Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu. There are different kinds of wisdom. There is analytic wisdom, there is divine wisdom, and there is also degraded wisdom. Degraded wisdom is the belief system that one takes on that is full of non-truths, that is full of inaccuracies, that is full of disappointments, that is full of grief, that is full of resentment, that is full of differences. Differences are the main cause of degraded wisdom. In existence, there is an overriding unity. This unity is at the core of truth. When this unity is lost, then degraded wisdom becomes the way people operate. This degraded wisdom leads to darkness. The darkness that comes from degraded wisdom leads to hell. And this ignorance prompts secrets within us. It prompts the fact that we hide things because of the fact that we are in the midst of being separated from things. And to maintain that separation and to maintain the differences, we can't be open. God is truth. God is effulgence. God has no secrets. And secrets are maintained because of egoism and ignorance. This shows itself in various ways. When we have very strong attachment to things in this world, and those things don't go the way that we want them, there is an overriding sadness that comes about because of the fact that the results that we expect don't happen. This is also a kind of ignorance. We believe that our expectation must be that which occurs. And if it doesn't occur, somehow we are saddened, and somehow we become broken, and somehow things become difficult for us. To understand the perfection of existence is not so easy for man, unfortunately, because man has all of these ideas about how things should be. And man has to give up that notion. Man has to allow things to move forward as they go with God's time, and to become satisfied with the status quo, understanding that we don't understand, understanding that we don't know everything, and we don't always see the full picture or are capable of seeing the full picture. Pain comes in many ways. We can have physical pain. We can have the pain of longing for someone else when we don't see them or have them within our grasp. We can have the pain of grief. We can have the pain of things not going the way we want them to go. There are so many different pains within the world. There's only one pain that actually takes us to a positive place. And that's the pain that we have from not knowing God. That is the pain that we truly need to work on and we truly need to understand. So if our heart is broken over the fact that we don't know God, that can be repaired. If our heart is broken over anything that goes on in the world, any repair to that is temporary because the world is temporary and whatever happens in the world is temporary. And the heartbreak that comes from the world will repeat itself over and over and over because the world dissipates and the world isn't stable. The world erupts. The world is volcanic. The world is hurricane-like. The world is all of these calamities that are constantly going on between nature and between man. And if we depend on anything in the world, we have misplaced our dependence. Only God can solve our problems. Only God can cure our ills. It is only God that we can turn to in time of difficulty. And if we learn to do that, if we learn to turn towards God, then a cure becomes available. And how does this cure become available? It becomes available by taking on the qualities of God. The search for God comes with searching for his qualities. You will find him through your wisdom, not through degraded wisdom, but through actual wisdom. And actual wisdom understands that to be able to become a full being, we need to be within the purview of what God is. Once we are in the purview of what God is, we see things in a different way than when we are in the grasp of worldly concepts, when we are in the grasp of worldly needs. And worldly needs are of many different kinds. Worldly needs can be romantic love. Worldly needs can be children's love. Worldly needs can be the need for wealth. Worldly needs can be the need for fame. You'd be surprised how many people are brokenhearted because they're not famous. You'd be surprised how many people are brokenhearted because they're not wealthy. You'd be surprised how many people are brokenhearted over the most personal kinds of things that are only personal to them. Some people are brokenhearted because their romance flounders. Some people are brokenhearted because of their relationship to their children. Some people are brokenhearted for so many different kinds of reasons. But we have to make our hearts whole, because our heart is the church for the residents of God. So what mends the broken heart? Allowing God to come in to the heart, allowing God to take residence within our heart, because then everything is resolved. Because with God, all is resolved. Within God, all is taken care of. All is merciful. All is compassionate. All is just. All is understood. But if we have a distance between ourselves and God, if we have a distance between ourselves and that ultimate truth, then things are split up into categories. And if any of these categories don't go the way that we perceive that they should go, we suffer great disappointment and we suffer great heartache. So we need to be able to re-establish ourselves with that which is truth. The world is full of illusion, and each of these illusions carry their own grief. Each of these illusions carry their own heartbreak. When a chicken is walking on the dirt, it's constantly picking with its legs, and it's looking for worms or insects. If it runs across something precious like a diamond or a ruby, it will let it bypass it, because that's not what it's interested in. It's not looking for precious things. It's looking for worms. Like that, the mind, the desire, and the ego are constantly digging in the earth. And the mind and desire and the ego, when they dig in the earth, are looking for respect. They're looking to be honored. They're looking for so many different aspects that are worldly. But as they dig, looking for all of these illusions of the world, they bypass truth. They bypass justice. They bypass mercy. They bypass the qualities of God. They bypass the effulgence and the glory of God, because that's not what they're looking for. When you're looking in the world, you're looking for worldly results, not for truth. And when we find truth, then that which breaks our heart will no longer be understood in the same way. It will no longer be understood as something that breaks our heart. It will be understood in a different way. It will be understood with compassion. It'll be understood with mercy. It'll be understood with grace. It'll be understood in an entirely different way than if we're looking for worldly results. When we are fixated on something, and that fixation becomes the foremost object of our concentration, becomes the foremost object of our thought process, becomes at the forefront of everything that we do and think, then we become incredibly sensitive to how that goes. And unless we can let go of that, we will continue to suffer the pangs of not having things come out the way that we want. It's a kind of ignorance because it is an assumption that we can find ultimate satisfaction, ultimate repair, ultimate love from the world. And we can't. Everything in the world will fade from us, whether now or later. Everything in the world will fade from us. And the things that we can hold on to, the things that will not fade from us, are truth and the qualities of God. And until we learn that we have to accept the qualities of God as our only salvation, as the only thing that we can hold on to and depend on, until we learn that, we are going to be subject to all of the difficulties that come from degraded wisdom. And degraded wisdom is thinking that we can find this happiness somewhere else, that we can find this truth somewhere else, that we can find this reality somewhere else. The world is full of secrets, and the world is full of things that we can't understand. The world is full of mysteries and things that are beyond our grasp. But very often, they are beyond our grasp because our idea of the overriding principles of our existence have lost us. We have to begin to refocus on the truth of what it is we need and the truth of what, in fact, can heal us and make us whole. And since all existence is one, since all existence is God, since there's nothing else but God in reality, everything else that we give credence to other than God will lead us astray, will lead us into difficulty, will lead us into pain, will lead us into sorrow, and will betray us. So we have to treat everything in this world, as the expression goes, with a grain of salt. And we have to have the faith that everything in this world will resolve itself in God's time and in God's will. And we can't force it. It's the attempt to force things that causes this pain. It's the attempt to force things that causes our difficulties. It's the attempt to force things that causes us to become despondent over the fact that things aren't going the way that we want them to go. Unless we transcend the worldly aspirations and the worldly qualities, we are stuck in mind, desire, and ego. We are stuck at the level of intellect. Now, animals are at the level of intellect. Beasts are at the level of intellect. And beasts see things and do things in a certain way. Truth is beyond it. Truth is beyond that understanding, and truth occurs when we imbibe truth and make it part of who we are and part of what we are. So if we have compassion, if we have mercy, if we have tolerance, if we can gain contentment, then no matter what happens, we will be at peace. When things in the world become more important to us than God, then when those things falter, we begin to falter and we begin to have difficulties. But if God becomes the foremost importance, then we begin to understand that this is all a play, and all of these things in this play will work itself out, but we have to give them time to work itself out. And the appropriate solution is not necessarily what we think it is. Love exists in the realm of freedom, and love can't be coerced. In the same way that there is no compulsion in religion, there is no compulsion in love. And if we think there is compulsion in love, it will boomerang and bring sorrow. It will boomerang and bring difficulty. Love is something that we give. Love is not something we can expect. So if we're in a situation where we don't feel that love is sufficient and our heart is broken because of it, we should understand that if we can give love and let go, that's when true freedom can occur, not only for ourselves, but for the one we love. And when that happens, there is a change in circumstances, there's a change in attitude, and there's a change in the way things are. It's only that way that things can truly happen in a positive way. God has given us all the tools for us to be whole. God has given us all the tools for us to be content. Companies manufacture things. There is, for instance, a company that makes pipes. And these pipes are used to transport water from one place to the other. If the pipes leak and the water doesn't get to where it's supposed to go, is it the fault of the pipe or is it the fault of the solderer? Is it the fault of the one who put the pipes together? Like that, is it the fault of God that we haven't been able to find contentment? Or is it our fault because of our thinking process that thinks about things in certain ways that are not appropriate, that thinks about things in an insistence that they go about being the way we want them to go about? This idea of being able to let go of things that we hold on to, this idea that we have to be able not to grasp too tightly and to give things their freedom is, and allow God to work with them, is a very difficult concept to hold on to sometimes. But the sheikh, when he teaches, gives the person the freedom to move in the way that they're going to move. The sheikh can't force the disciple to do what the disciple has to do. It has to come to the point where the disciple does what he has to do on his own volition. So if we have free will, so does everyone else. And in our relationship with everyone else, we have to allow that free will to occur in everyone else. And we also have an obligation to ourselves to be able to be free of the emotional attachment to worldly things. And unless we can let go of that emotional attachment, we will be tortured and continue to be tortured. I remember when I was a teenager, I was tortured a lot because teenage years are difficult years. Things don't go the way you want them to go, and everything seems to be so important. Well, this same attitude exists in adulthood. And sometimes we place emphasis on certain relationships and consider them the most important relationships in our lives. Well, there is, in truth, one important relationship in your life, and that's the relationship between you and God. And if that relationship can become right, then every other relationship will become right. And if that relationship is ignored, then no relationship can become right. So we have to refocus. We have to re-examine. We have to reanalyze. We have to have a new idea of our relationship with the world. And we have to realize that that relationship with the world and with every aspect of our relationship with the world is secondary to our relationship with God. It's very, very difficult for man to realize that his existence has a certain span to it. And this existence is going to end. This is a temporary manifestation. This is not a permanent manifestation. Permanence comes in the next phase of our existence. And that permanence depends on our ability to reconcile ourselves with the truth as opposed to reconciling ourselves to what we call degraded wisdom or ideas about the world that aren't true. Like certain things are supposed to happen for us. Well, they're not. Certain things are supposed to go certain ways for us. Well, it ain't necessarily so. It just reminds me of Porgy and Bess. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, it ain't necessarily so. It can be an entire multitude of different things. And what we have to learn how to do is all of the trials and tribulations that come to us in this world, we have to learn to be content with. All of the difficulties that come to us in this world, we have to learn to be content with. You all know the story of Job, and Job is in the Bible. And the whole point of Job is contentment. The whole point of Job is no matter what happens, his point of view and his demeanor never changed. At one moment, Job had the greatest riches in all of the land, to the north, east, south, and west. And then at the next moment, couriers come from the north, east, south, and west and tell him each of the things that he had in each of those areas are destroyed. And he said, all praise is to God. So, can we bring ourselves to that place? Because true contentment is only available in God. In a marriage, if we are looking for contentment from each other, we're not going to find it. But if we're looking for contentment from each other with God and God's qualities, then a marriage will work. In our relationship with anybody, if we're looking for something other than contentment from God, we're not going to find it. We're only going to find it when we look for that contentment from God. So, how is it that we turn ourselves in a way towards understanding that? And one of the ways is to look over our lives and look at all the difficulties that we've had and look how they've passed. And then new difficulties have taken their place. And look how they've passed and new difficulties have taken their place. So we should learn that part of this worldly existence is difficulties. There was a great sheikh in Lebanon, and he went to the mosque to do his ablutions and to go pray. And as he's standing in the area where you do the ablutions, there was a little pool of water there, and he fell in. He had trouble getting out, and he almost drowned. And after he got out, an Arab came up to him. He said, I remember the time when the great sheikh I'm looking at could walk on water without getting wet. And now this same great sheikh almost drowns in a tiny pool of water. And the great sheikh said, at times I am with Allah, and at times I am not. And when I am not, I don't have any of my capabilities. And when I am, it is not me, it is his capabilities. And it's like that. We are not always at the top of our game. And the prophet had a period where he got no revelation. And he said to God, have you abandoned me? He felt the same thing that we feel when we are without hope. Have we been abandoned? Have things become so terrible that there's no solution? And then God comes back and we see it again, and we see the truth again, and we know again what contentment is, and we know again what reality is, and we know again where our nurturing and our sustenance really exists. And when we can focus on that and maintain that focus, then we can become real and we can become content, and our hearts will be repaired. Our difficulties will be repaired. Our grief will be repaired. But understand that you might not be able to maintain that state indefinitely. It'll go away, but have the faith that it'll come back. Have the faith that it'll come back again. And once again, you'll be at the place where your relationship with God is such that it brings you contentment. This is what faith is. This is what the understanding of reality is. This is what truth is. This is what God's qualities do for you. So we have to pray that God allows us to be at peace, that God allows us to be content, and that God maintains us in that place. And may that be what he does for each and every one of us, so we may all come to reach the truth of ourselves and the truth of our relationship with the world, and within the understanding of the truth of our relationship with God. May each of us come to know our Creator. May each of us come to be close to him. May each of us get to the place where he considers us his friend, because that is the highest status that we can achieve. And may that be our true status. Amin. Amin. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.